Hello, ladies and gentlemen. George in the flesh, coming back at you, fresh from recovery from a little man cold that I had last week or so. Yeah, last weekend was really bad, but usually what I do, I was thinking of making a video as to how you can recover from a man cold. I drank a lot of, I still have a bit of a stuffy nose. Um, uh, s- Tea made out of sage, dry sage, of course. And it's great. You sweeten it either with artificial sweetener if you're diabetic, or have it bitter, or with honey. And I had about 8 or so cups of that. Made me feel pretty good, but not without Tylenol. Tylenol was also essential. Drinking some frothy coffee made by Nescafe. Anyways, I was thinking of making a video about that, but today what I'm going to bring to you, and I've done several videos about this scenario called Sowchos. I misspelled it. Sowchos. Like Sochi. No, no, no. It's Sowchos 79. There goes another bug. Another error. But yeah, I thought it was worth a revisit. And the reason why is because there have been a lot of lessons learned. And I always like sharing my knowledge with you. So why not? See, I'm scratching my head thinking here. Let's start by taking a look at the scenario card. Now, I am showing the scenario card with you. If you don't want to buy the U series scenarios from Turning the Tide, that's your fault. What I'm going to ask is don't try to copy it off of YouTube. And I'm pretty sure none of you do. Most ASL players are not that, don't stoop that low. That's my opinion. Most, if not all. So let's take a look at this scenario card and get some context. With no further ado, let's see if I can make my magic work. I think it's working. So Sowchos 79, it takes place in southern Russia, 8th of December 1942, following the encirclement of the 6th Army in Stalingrad. And basically what it is, it's a pincer movement. And Sowchos 79, as a staging area, if it's being portrayed as a staging area for the relief of the 6th Army, and there's a gallant story about how the General Black's 11th Ghost Panzer Division arrived in the area from Rostov to just off a collective farm off the Chur River to take part in the collective attempt to relieve the defenders or the attackers of Stalingrad, mind you. And I find that a little bit outlandish because at that point, pretty much the whole southern flank was in peril with the encirclement of the Sixth Army, and as if you follow TIK's Stalingrad series, you'll see that most likely Manstein had no intent of ever attempting to relieve Stalingrad because um, he saw the effort would be futile, useless, and probably counterproductive. And I watched that series, and what I got from there was good old Manstein. He played um, his boss well, and he also played uh, the commander of Sixth Army pretty well as well, miscommunicating his intent as to whether he's going to start a counterattack or not. He lied. Anywho, getting back to this situation here. Um, Victory conditions. I think I can draw here, but I'm not going to save the drawings. Victory conditions is controlling 12 buildings between hex rows L and V on board 3. It's a very narrow margin. And keep in mind that, red is for Russians, the Russian tank reinforcements come in from here. And the Germans, back to blue, come in from here. Anyway, more on that later. 12 buildings is what you need to keep in mind. Why I'm mentioning this is that when the German player sees the opportunities for firefights here, they are often distracted with the battle rather than the overall objective and goal. So I would say if you're planning for success, keep the objective in mind and don't be distracted from the victory conditions. Otherwise, you will be one of the many people that loses the scenario as the German. I'll show you also the raw data even before we get into the planning stage. Now, the overall victims of this scenario tend to be this elements of motorized infantry brigade or wherever and whatever that might be. And they kind of line up around here. I'll show you on the board later. And their overall intent is, are they reinforcements for the village? Are they a distraction? What are they? Who knows? But ultimately, somehow they end up always being annihilated. Now, keep in mind that even though they may be annihilated, and that's about, what, 8 squads, it's not the part of the victory conditions. Do you need to ignore them? We'll find out later. And then the important factor here is that the Russians also have reinforcements starting turn 4 with radioless armored fighting vehicles. It's that being T-34, T-34, M41. These folks, the KV-1s, they're powerful armored monsters, especially this fellow here, okay? And they started coming on board on turn 5. And keep in mind, other than armor and AT guns, the Germans don't have Panzerschrecks. It's 1942, Panzerfausts. And their anti-armor abilities are basically a couple of AT guns, some armor, and their bare hands, basically. Their ability to conduct street fighting and reaction fire, which means CC, close combat into tanks. These guys are also, I suppose, radioless. I'm not too sure. I would have to double check that. Don't quote me on that. Another monster there. And then when you look at the German OB, these guys are the vanguard of the attack. Let's go to blue. Give me some blue. There you go. These guys are the vanguard of the attack. Right here. Here's your AT gun. Here's a mortar. A mortar 2 apart from that. I'm not too sure if in 1942 the Germans had mortars. I think Mr. Staller, Jim Staller, was really obsessed with mortars in converting the classic scenarios. This is a classic COI scenario right there, converted to ASL. And I think by far the ASL version of the game is the better game because it uses a better rule system. You do have some excellent armor leaders, but these guys are reinforcements. And they come in on turn 1. And basically, they're probably tasked with preventing the motorized elements of reinforcing the village. But more importantly, what the German players typically tend to misunderstand is that it is imperative to bring your armor onto the proper board and deploy it properly. And these guys are your infantry reinforcements, but note, only 6 squads. Typically, your Russian OB exceeds the number of squads compared to the Germans. There were more Russians than Germans in World War II, as our now Prime Minister likes to say, point final. Point final. Anywho, keep in mind here that you have 3 leaders. with negative modifiers. These guys should be the vanguard of the attack. This guy, I would tend to give him the radio. Anywho, and in addition, here, there's another 3 great leaders coming in. And the object of the game is get them on board the half tracks and make sure that they get to where they need to be without impediments. Okay, so we went over the scenario card. I'm gonna throw in now the balance and some other online research that I did. I did it using Google. So first and foremost, let's put the roar data here. Let's see, does everybody see the roar data? Of course not. So let's Sowchos, SO79. Excuse me. Not too far. There it is. So interesting thing about roar data is that they have this the COI scenario, and they have the COI scenario, the Russians beating the Germans 7-3. Whereas with U28, that's the ASL conversion, it's 19-13, a bit more closer, more balanced, it appears. Now, if you look at other resources on the internet, let's go here, put that there. All right, let's maximize it. Sowchos 79. This is the ASL scenario archive. What we got here is the overall map, winter sized, but it's not snow. It's actually what the scenario card says. It's mud, so all EFEs do not get road rate. What they have here is, in terms of votes, recorded games are 13, 7-6 in favor of the Russians, 19-13 from roar data. Nothing much there. In terms of, this one has nothing. This is all text. I like pictures. This is one of my videos I've done before, after action report. War game scenarios, they've other ways to model the game would be model the battle with Fire and Fury games. I found this as well. Pretty nifty. and here, like, what I kind of find interesting is, here is Turning the Tide. This is where I got it from, and also from the COI. Here's the geolocation, and in terms of the geolocation, you can see it's a long ways from it's a long ways to Volgograd, close to Rostov on the Don, and this is where Black's Ghost Division is coming from Rostov to the Sowchos 79, just on the Chir River, and they're attempting to break out into Volgograd to relieve Volgograd, but the pincer movement, Soviet pincer movement, takes place around here. Yeah. So let's move along and see what we can do in terms of looking at the map. Let's take a look at the map and see what's going on. And this might be a little bit of a repetition, but repetition is good. All right, we all see the map. I'm going to turn off my video capture so we can see the map perfectly. I might zoom in, I might draw, so stay tuned. Let's see, where is my video capture? There, turned it off. All right, so basically, let's get a pen here. Pen. And let's see if we can use a color. Let's see, pen, pointers, pen. in color. Good. Let's put red for the Russians. So going back to the scenario card, and page 1, these fellows here start up between Y and L on board 3. So going back to the scenario card, Y and L, zoom in. So Y and L is here, and L is here. But basically, the Victor objective is more narrow, and you have 12 buildings. Now, what's interesting to note as the Russian is the number of multi hex buildings: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. In total, the German player has to control 12, and the number that are close to his objective are 4 here and 5, 6, 7 here. So basically, with capturing seven buildings, you would need another 5, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 readily available to him. Why is it important to differentiate between the multi-hex buildings and the single hex buildings? That's because multi-hex buildings are harder to capture, and the broken units can always route upstairs because they're level 1.5. However, with single hex buildings, you can actually ram your armored fighting vehicles in them and control them as long as the armored fighting vehicle is in the hex. And if it ever leaves the hex, the building will revert back to where it was before. So now, knowing the setup area, we can safely tell you that these units here, okay, is what you have to set up in here. And these units there are setting up along the road in motion like this, and they all have to face this direction. Okay, then as the German player, what you need to know is your reinforcements are restricted to coming in along this area here, whereas the Russian reinforcements can come in from here. The Russian reinforcements are here, right? So we got these units are armored using the NATO symbol. These units are mechanized. Just like so. And these units here are infantry only, but with ATRs, which is great because ATRs can use the black numbers to hit numbers regardless of nationality. And here, what the German player has is what appears to be a mechanized. Let's turn that to blue. So you got another mechanized force here, an armor column here, or armor reinforcements here. Them being these boys. These guys are mech because they do have some armor support. And so are these guys here, coming in on turn 2, I believe. All right, let's clean up the board again and come up with our different point, another point. Hopefully that point is not on our head. And then we're going to go out to the actual game board and reinforce our points here. So back to the pen. So these units here, actually, it should be red. Okay. These units here, they are starting up here in this direction. And on turn 1, these armor units are coming on board. And they are moving first. So they'll have the beat on you, especially if they come in through here, like that. Or, well, this will cost them a lot of points trying to get up on the hills. So they prefer to occupy hexes here, here, and here, and try to stave off the column. Now, I'm going to give you a pointer about that, okay? On the other side of the board, the Russians, they can set up in such a posture as to defend against any German thrusts. And they have ATRs, like I said before. So they really have to carefully position their units to delay the assault. So with that general concept in mind, I think it's worth going to the board and looking at some of the details. So this is what we're going to do now. Let's turn off our PowerPoint. And unfortunately, I won't be able to draw anymore, but que sera, sera. So let's go to our board. Everybody can see the board now, I hope. Okay, so let's put these guys on board here. I'm selecting them, dragging them all the way to their setup area. So 4Y3 is the last hex, or the pointer hex, and everything else goes to the end of the board. Now, when you look at these boys, they have to set up this way. There's two types of trucks. There's one type which has 25 movement points, and there are small targets. And then the second type has 21 movement points, and they are normal size targets. Now, obviously, well, maybe not obviously, let's focus in on this group here alone. Obviously, what you'd like to do is get your gun positioned in a way that it can defend against any onslaught, any German onslaught. From time to time, I'm taking a sip of coffee. So there's two ways of doing that. Okay, either you can set them in the rear of the column, and typically I put it in a 25 movement point truck. Okay, and the other thing that I found effective is, let's put this guy on the be technical. The other thing that I found effective is stack the leader with them as well, because the leader can use the armor his leader factor to direct the fire of the AT gun. And then I'll have a leader, another leader either on the vanguard of the column or somewhere strategically well placed to affect as many people as possible, to support as many people as possible. Okay. So there's two ways to tackle this problem of this column being annihilated. Okay. One way is you put the AT gun here and then try to position him. They all start in motion, so try to position him around this X here, keeping in mind that you have to expend 2 movement points to turn around, and then half of your movement factors to debark. So with 25, you got to keep in mind half of 25 fractions rounded up is 13. So you have to have 13 left, and 25 minus 15, 13, 25 minus 13 is 12. You cannot expend more than 10 movement factors. So it'll be 1, and then you want to turn around, so now you can jog down this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to stop. And then the remainder to disembark. And now what you got here, and you can position your position your covered arc whereby, and let's do it this way, whereby you can affect this whole area here, well, this whole area here. And in addition to that, if you take a line of sight check, you'll see that you have line of sight to these hill hexes here with a double L type weapon. That would, believe me, I've taken pot shots at AFVs on these hills and destroyed them with that 57 double L, because they also have their rear target facing towards me. That is a bit of a risky move. People don't usually expect it. Does it work? To some extent. The other thing you can do is, that's with this item, is instead of positioning him at the rear of the column, let's put one of these guys. Let's see. Okay, let's put one of these guys back there. Another one back here. Let's go like that. Put this guy here. Oh, and they have to be facing this way, which is not bad. I like it. It suits me just fine. Just like so. We put Popov there, put some lonely squads there. Okay. Now, keep in mind they start in motion. Even if this fellow, the German player, sets up here or there, typically they might not have line of sight there. They are also in motion. They're starting off in motion. So basically what this guy can do is go 4, 8 to there, 9 to stop, and now he is in a position whereby he can affect there, cuts off the road, cuts off entry here. He can swing around with very little impediment, and you don't care about that. And to make matters a bit worse, we can position units here, or alternatively, what we can do is run another group here, and these guys will have to run for it, one way or another, you know. Well, they can run for it, or alternatively, they can go in here and end up getting wrecked, but with a wreck on the road, especially in key junctures, it will slow down the progress of the German armor. So even if we manage to bring the Russian squads here, for example, right, and the instinct of the German player will be to shoot at it. We don't want these guys to reach the village. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever the reason might be. Or you might have a trigger-happy opponent. The more trigger-happy they are, the merrier you are as a Russian, because you're blocking his roads. Keep in mind, in Russian military doctrine, infantry is next to nothing. They're used at leisurely expense, as long as they achieve something. Whether that be a blockage, the expenditure of ammunition, valuable ammunition, you name it. That's Russian military doctrine. So the Russian convoy, there are a couple of options for the gun. One is to position them in the rear. One is to position them in midpoint and catch a tactical position, or up on the front and put him here where, again, he can affect some way of getting these guys into some semblance of open ground or cover, and having forcing the German player to expend his armor reinforcements, trying to annihilate these guys. Now that comes to my second point, which is the German reinforcements and the armor. So you have two types of armored fighting vehicles. You have these guys with a 50L gun and quite powerful machine guns, 8 firepower machine guns. And then you got the 75Ls. Now in the classic game, we would position them on high ground, and then there's practically no obstacles and practically no blind spots to impede them. However, in this game with line of sight, for every multiple of 5, fractions rounded up, I believe, you end up having an additional blind hex. So my plan here is, well, keep this guy on the road with 33 movement factors. He can be the leading element to take on in close fighting your village rascals that are keeping you from gaining your objective. So with that amount of movement factors, bring him out, bring him to the village as quickly as possible. Put these guys in reserve to take on the armor column, okay, and rush these guys to the village as soon as you can, as quickly as possible. Otherwise, what awaits the German infantry is this powerhouse here. So I've covered points 1 and points 2. My third point is, well, again, smoke is your friend. And you got to look at the scenario card, and it says, you have HE and smoke. And basically, these boys here is what constitutes your vanguard of your attack. Let's turn to the vanguard of the attack. So we've taken care of the left flank. Let's take a look at the right flank at the moment. So the German player sets up first. I'm just dragging everybody to where the startup locations are. You're not allowed starting up in half hexes. Now, you got 3 excellent leaders, right? And when you look at the board, you have to ask yourself, where is my principal attack going to be from? Keeping in mind that the Russian armor reinforcements are going to be here, coming from here, and very quickly, I may add. So you have 1, 2, 3 excellent leaders, and then you got a schlepper. For those that know what a schlepper is, I think it's Yiddish. Anyways, and then you got to ask yourself, who am I going to put the HMG with? And the MMG, because these guys can tie you down. Well, one thing that's evident is that the radio should go with Lieutenant Bello, because these guys should be the crux of your attack. Now, that being said, let's divide everything into equally all the infantry units between the leaders, and we give them each a platoon and then some. There's a platoon for everyone. Right? Right. Okay, and then let's give these guys a couple of LMGs. And let's give our best leaders our heavy weapons. Now, what I would do is ask myself, where is the principal state of the attack going to be from? And basically, I would, as I did, divide it into 4 groups and pick perhaps this area. And then what I would do is I would say, okay, this guy is good for bringing on smoke. Let's start his fire group here. Oops, what do we got there? Let's not exceed the maximum. Let's start their group here. These guys are going to assault as well. All right. Where's he running away from? Get back to the front. Blink. Okay. And basically the scope here would be a simply assault move and take up a good position whereby they can attack. All right. And these fellows here, so it's a bit of a pincer movement. With 8-1 leaders and 9-1 leaders, they can lend their negative modifier to supporting infantry in close combat. It is a bit of a risky move, but hey, it's all fine and dandy. Now, the other question arises is, where do you put these folks? And there have been instances where the martyr is positioned here with the objective of going up here and getting it blown up with AT guns. I've positioned these fellows here and there, and they are completely ineffective against infantry. in stone buildings. The same thing goes for the OBA, but with the scope of putting this guy here, putting down a smoke barrage here, and then having this guy assault, that makes sense. And then getting some semblance of firepower here makes sense. But again, in terms of anticipating your opponent's armor reinforcements, it would, I would say, be great to have armor, anti-armor, some semblance of anti-armor either here or there. But the wisest decision I've seen so far is setting up these boys here in order to take the heights. Now, you might want to consider putting the truck first with the objective of getting this height, and then this fellow here with the objective of probably this location where he can rain some fire down here, or even this location where you can prevent anybody from coming here while your flank is protected. So that would be a 5, starts for 1 and 6, 7, 8. 8 plus 5 would be 13, and he stays in motion. Big deal. And then you take this guy up here. So that would be, I think, 16. Nah, it would be 4 plus cost of terrain. 4 plus cost of terrain would be probably 8. Anywho, I would have to look that up. Now, in terms of these boys, you got 3 leaders, which and they're not all what they're it's supposed to be cracked up to be, but we know the story of Russian leaders. So when I read the classic squad leader manual, as a excellent article about the use of MGs in the Second World War. It's fantastic. What I usually like to do is, first and foremost, just position weapons where they can create enfilade fire, okay? And then for your ATRs, you might want to keep a few in reserve, like this. And basically, the scope here is to create fire lanes, right? And to prevent you from being flanked over here. And then, basically, you really have no choice with the Russians other than to position your best leader with the best squad and the best MMG. And then for these boys, keep them in reserve. Don't try to, well, you could try to be brave and defend this building and try to delay, if you're lucky, try to delay the Russian assault by a couple of moves until your armor arrives. And then you also should consider this thing here, because it'll prevent them from, it will prevent the, might prevent and might not prevent the Germans from taking Hill 498 as its position there. Okay. And basically put your squads in as much as possible in concealment terrain. Always have your reserve. Keep your opponent guessing. What's it going to do next? There you go. So we covered smoke. Like I said before, basically, this is a pincer movement. He assault moves there. He'll be concealed in any case. Nobody knows what the heck is going on, right? Your opponent did not inspect stacks, right? Here we go. And they will assault move to there in the first turn. These guys will be also, maybe not concealed, but these guys will be, not even. So these guys will assault move to there and there. 8 up 1 attack, 8 up 2 attack. Are they going to, who's going to win? Let's see. Let's do an 8 up 2 attack, 8 up 1 attack. 5, 6. 6 on the 8 is a 1 check. Let's see how we'll fare. The 8 -1 leader. He breaks. Now I need 3 6s. 1, 2, 3. 1 made it. One even, a couple of, 1 casualty reduced and 1 ELR'd. It happens. And let's do an 8 up 2 attack here. The cower, and this is nothing. So now you can go like this. I'm shocked that I didn't put an extra squad there for this guy. Oh, 1 squad was supposed to be here. All right, and let's say he passed as well. You're gonna have 1 attack with 2 to 1. And another attack with 1 to 1 -1. And hopefully you'll take that building. And this guy will be crying all the way back to Berlin. And then during the advance phase, you can put your leader in his radio here, where he has a good line of sight. Put another squad with him. And then these guys can go here. And over here, we can put a squad with a heavy and the big guy, the big leader here. Always have to nudge them out. Break that stack into 2. Hold your fire until you get a good stack here. Your stack spread out here, and smoke comes down here, and then you start taking over the buildings. But you could see that the Germans have their work cut out for them. And by all means, do not forget that your ATRs, even though the Russian, use the black to hit numbers, and that the Russian to kill number for Russian ATRs is higher than the ordinary ATRs. And as for the armor, as I said before, they might come in using platoon movement, but if any of these single buildings have been taken over, ram into them, grab them while you can. Makes his life a lot more difficult. Nonetheless, there's a lot of opportunities to come in and attain haul down positions, as long as you don't get thrown into the cellar. You'll be okay. And as for these guys, providing they don't have a lot of impediments here and direct Russian trucks, you'll be fine. With 60 movement factors, you can make it to the village in no time at all. So that's my 2 cents. Let me get my video capture back. It's 50 minutes. You can always watch this video with with double time. CX. Anywho, that's a couple more tips for Sowchos79. Forgive me for misspelling it beforehand. So guys, I'll do my best to get you a video next week, even if it has to do with a little bit of play. Doing some renovation work here in the house. Finally got ourselves a new front door. See how that works out. And basement is coming along fine. There's never something not to do in this old house, but hey, what can we do? So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I'll have the creativity, energy, and stamina to bring you something else. Stay tuned. Keep a stiff upper lip and a good smile. See you soon.